Hello, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Mariah, and this is my testimony on how I came to know Jesus Christ and essentially how he saved my life. So honestly, I hadn't really planned on publicly sharing this at first. I just didn't feel 100% comfortable with putting myself out there in this way, but lately God has been urging me to share my testimony and finally come out about how I became a Christian. And I know what it's like to hear things like that. I know to some people hearing that God told somebody to do something sounds crazy. I know, because I've been there. I've been that person. But it's the truth. And I know that if I didn't come out and share my testimony with others, that I would be doing a huge disservice to God by not honoring him for what he's done in my life. There were a few reasons why I didn't want to go public with this at first. And it all pretty much stemmed from fear, honestly. Fear of being mocked and ridiculed. Being a former atheist and skeptic, I know firsthand how unusual this stuff might sound to somebody who doesn't believe. I know, I get it, because I've been that person. And I'm also familiar with the mockery and the labels often put on Christians, and pretty much anyone who talks about this kind of stuff or speaks about spirituality in general. The other reason I was reluctant about sharing this is because of the circumstances of my situation. What I'm going to share with you tonight is something very sensitive and personal to me, and it's something that I struggled with and went through, that I kept hidden for over 4 years. This is the first time I've ever come out about my experience, and the main reason why I became a Christian. I've been Christian for about 2 years now, but before that, I was completely and 100% atheist. I did not believe in God. I didn't believe in spirituality at all. I thought believing in such things was silly, and basically I was just a strong believer in science, and that was about it. And I was not a good person by any means, by any standard. I was hateful and hurtful. I hurt a lot of people, and I was just miserable. I was just a miserable person. I was really good at hiding it too. I was pretty fake about it. But anyway, right after high school, I had joined the Navy, and during my time in the Navy, I had picked up some pretty bad habits, and I was living a really sinful life. Around 2013, I had developed an eating disorder, and this eating disorder, it grew more and more aggressive as the years went by. By the way, this story is going to be very condensed, because if I told you every detail, this video would be super long. So long story short, after I got out of the Navy, I enrolled in college, and after a few science classes, my disbelief in God only grew, and I thought I was so wise, and I was just so educated, and everybody who believed in God, to me, was just blind to logic, or delusional, or simply ignoring facts. I used to enjoy when people would bring up God so that I could so that I could try and destroy their argument with like science or moral philosophy, or just, I would ask them impossible questions that would put them in this void position and make it pretty much impossible for them to answer. I remember for some reason I hated when people would talk about Jesus in particular, and I understand why now, but back then I couldn't identify why he bothered me so much. I felt threatened when somebody would bring him up, not Allah or any other religion or any other religious figure, but Jesus in particular. So this was my mentality at the time. Couldn't stand religion. I thought it was harmful to people. I thought it was a man-made construct that was pretty much utilized by the government, or a comfort blanket for people to use. Even though I would pretty much laugh at other people who believed in Jesus and God in general, I also felt bad for them for being, in my mind, for being so brainwashed and trapped into feeling guilty about so-called sinning. I thought that was, to me, it was crazy. To me, it didn't make sense. And my mentality towards Christians and anyone who was religious was like, you're wasting your entire life trying to live by these impossible standards and these rules that supposedly God created just to go to a place after you die where you never die. You get it. I mean, I've painted a pretty clear picture of my mentality towards religion. So fast forward to 2017, during my second year of college, we were studying DNA. And I remember just being so fascinated with all of the fundamentals of life and what created it all. And like for months, I was completely in awe of what I was learning in class, like completely fascinated. And for some reason, having to accept that all living material and all of its complexities, having to accept that everything just formed on its own, by itself, on accident, it was just, to me, like, it didn't make sense to me. This really bothered me because deep down I didn't want to believe something could have created us, humans. I didn't want that responsibility, but still I was fascinated and I couldn't ignore it. And every Monday and Wednesday after class, I would stay after and talk to my professor about all of the questions I had. And most of these questions that I had, my bio professor couldn't even answer. I mean, nobody could answer them because they were just way out there. I remember asking him things like, you know, what made the very first organism officially alive? What was the determining factor and the first twitch or movement of life? And like, what came first? Was it the blood? Was it the heart that pumped the blood? You know, was it the skin that held it all together? Like, you know, what came first? I became obsessed. I would listen to these science podcasts, and I would YouTube different scientists who would discuss the origins of life, and I would watch documentaries of different theories on the evolution of life, and, you know, just multiple different theories on life. But I still had that question of, how did nothing turn into something? How did nothing result in intelligent life? How did an explosion result in living, breathing, loving, unique beings? And that's when I started to think about an outside agent. Something powerful but purposeful and personal. And I wondered, like, could God be real? Like, could that be a possibility? And I didn't, like I said before, I didn't want this to be true. I hated the idea of God existing because it felt threatening to my life, to my lifestyle. The labels and the stereotypes that I had personally against, on religion and spirituality and such, that played into it. But I recognized my biases, and I knew that I was being closed-minded towards, the alternative, which was God. And so I started researching creation theories involving God. And I even took up this world religions class. Again, long story short, I went from being 100% atheist, from believing in nothing, to believing in maybe something. One day, and this was after months after months of being immersed in different theories and ideas on how I existed. I was in my car on my way home from class, and I was thinking about God and basically what if. And I thought, what if I reached out and some external force from outer space or another dimension would hear my cry of desperation and would give me some sort of validation, some sort of interdimensional sign of some sort that I could hold on to, that I could have just to be clear, just to be sure. I was just desperate to know. I just wanted to know, I wanted the answers. So in my car, I got home, I was in my driveway, and in my car I said a prayer. And I refused to call it a prayer this time, but I said, God, if you're real and you really exist, would you not want me to know you? Would you want me to wonder forever about if you exist, or would you want me to know you? And I said that. I said that, and I remember saying, I don't want to be disrespectful to you, but if you're there, I want you to give me a sign, and I will believe. And after saying this, I can tell you that I felt I'll admit that I felt embarrassed and kind of dumb, to be honest, but I had nothing to lose. And looking back at this time, little did I know that in the next 6 months, would go on to be the most incredible yet extremely terrifying months of my entire life at that point. And really, really strange things started happening to me. I won't go into detail about it right now because I don't have enough time, and I might make another video about it, but there was just so much happening in my life, and I just couldn't understand it. I was having these really vivid dreams, and one dream actually reflected a Bible verse, which at the time blew my mind, but it still wasn't enough to believe in God. At the time, I didn't want to believe in the Christian God because in my mind, I thought it was too cliche to believe in that specific God. I thought that was closed-minded, and I just felt really biased towards Christianity, against Christianity, and I thought if there was a God, it was not confined to that specific one, if that makes any sense. Hinduism, Islam, Jainism, Buddhism, you name it, I knew about it. I was researching it. But it wasn't until I finally started to learn about Jesus Christ and his character that I began to change my mind. a little bit in terms of what I felt about Christ and Christianity in general. And I was so intrigued. It was Jesus stood out to me in his teachings and his demeanor, and I started studying the Bible and learning about Jesus and the meaning of his life and death and what he claimed his purpose was for. And I ended up finding out that his purpose was essentially it was for me. So fast forward to December of 2017, and like I mentioned before, during this time I had been struggling with an eating disorder, bulimia and anorexia, which had been occurring daily for about 4 years straight at that point. It controlled my entire life. I felt like I was trapped in this violent cycle that would never end, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't break out of it. I remember being in the bathroom. I was in the bathtub, and I was throwing up, and I remember feeling like, how long will I keep doing this? How long will I keep this up, and will it ever stop? And this is the first time I actually broke down this way. I was crying and the water was running, and I just felt so enslaved by this addiction, by this disease. And without a premeditated thought, out of nowhere, in my head, I said, Jesus. And I said this in my mind. I didn't say it out loud. I said it in my mind. I said, just Jesus, in my most vulnerable and desperate state. And I can't explain the feeling. I can't explain the feeling. But it was love. Someone loved me. I stillness, peace. Within seconds, immediately, I felt the crying stopped. I not on my own. And something had come over my entire being. And it was, I cannot explain it. There are no words. I am incapable of explaining the way I felt. It was something I cannot begin to even try. There's love, just the closest thing I've ever felt to the feeling that I had is love, peace. The entire room was Jesus. Jesus was with me. And I can't believe, I still to this day, it blows my mind. Like, he saved me in a second, in 1 second. He had saved me. I'm sorry, I want to be able to explain to you. Let me start from the beginning. The feeling. when I called his name, and I didn't even say, you know, it's not like I said, Jesus, please help me, or I was just talking and praying. And I said his name. I just said Jesus. But I remember in my head, it was like I screamed it. I was so desperate. And once I said that, it didn't take 5 minutes or, you know, a few, like, it instantly, this feeling came over me. Like, the best way I can describe it, I have a 5-year-old son, and when he hugs me, when I hug him, this feeling comes out of my chest, like it's actual perpetuating vibrational, like it's love. I can feel love for him. And the feeling that I had surpassed that. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because I love my son more than anything in this world. But the feeling that I had, it was like, instead of that love flowing out of me, that love was flowing out of something else into my being. I cannot even explain it. And it's just, I wish that I could explain it better. I really do. I really do. And when this happened, I remember feeling like I wanted to keep crying. You know, like normally if you're crying about something, like you want to get it all out, but I physically could not cry anymore. There was just this feeling of like, you're okay. I'm okay. I'm not only okay, but I felt healed at that it felt almost like I never had an addiction to begin with. It was like this darkness, this heaviness that was over me for 4 years. 4 years. Gone. Completely. I went to bed that night shocked, in a good way. I mean, I just could not believe what just happened to me. I didn't pray. I just went to sleep shocked. And for weeks after this moment, my appetite for food, like for bad food, I had no appetite for anything that wasn't good for me. And all I craved were healthy foods. And not one time did I want to do that again. Never one time did I want to like binge eat, or like after I ate, I didn't feel like what I normally had felt for 4 years. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with eating disorders, but it is like an addiction. It's a disease. And it's like when you have to go to the bathroom, when you have to pee, you have to pee, you know, you have to get rid of it. That's how it feels when you have an eating disorder. And it was gone. It was completely gone. And I never felt the need to do it again, ever. Literally never, not one time did I want to do this again. And that was, before this happened, that was an impossibility for me. It was impossible for me to stop, impossible for me to get help. And just by saying his name on the spot, it was incredible. It took me a few days to really understand what had happened. And once I really acknowledged it, and I knew that it was Jesus, I still can't even fathom that he did that. I've heard that he cured the blind and he healed the sick, and I knew all that, but within 1 second, he took away something that I had been dealing with and struggling with for 4 years. There was just and he gave me the sign. That was his sign. That was the sign. Incredible. That was his sign. He not only showed me that it's me, Jesus specifically, but he cured me. I'm a nobody. I'm nothing. I was a bad person. I like, you know, look at me. I'm just an ordinary person. Less than. I was less than. I was just horrible, and I denied him, and I was so far removed from any standard that was, relevant to God. But still, he helped me, and I will never forget it. And I a few days afterwards, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. Telling the story, saying it out loud like this, it does something. This is my testimony. I am telling you from experience. If you call on Jesus Christ, I don't care what you've heard. Just forget everything you've heard and just call on Jesus Christ. Just call on him. And he will deliver you, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, no matter what you've done, or how far you think you've strayed. He loves you. And for those of you who are skeptical, or, the ones who don't believe, I don't blame you. Like I said, if it were 3 years ago and I was watching this video, I would feel the same way. But I'm telling you with 100% confidence that Jesus Christ really is the answer. And he loves you, and he will heal you, and he will shelter you. He saves. Jesus saves. I really want to make some other videos talking about my experiences, the signs I've gotten from God. A complete nobody. I'm nothing, and he deemed me worthy enough to give me signs and dreams, and I want to share those things with everybody, because I want everybody to know. I want everybody to be cured of whatever they're going through. I will never forget what he did for me, and I will always be in his debt. This is just a small portion of my gratitude for what he did for me. I know that I'm going to face, I know people will probably make fun of me. I've accepted it. And I know who I used to be, and what I would have done, and I probably would have laughed at this, sadly. And but I don't care. I don't care. I know what happened to me. I know this is the truth, and I don't care. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to upload some other videos talking about, like I said, the dreams that God has given me, and a few other things that have happened to me that have validated not only God's existence, but Christ specifically. That's it for now. I love you guys so much. I really do. Remember what I said. Call on Jesus in your most vulnerable time. Call on him no matter what you're going through. He will save you. He will deliver you. Thank you so much.